Welcome back to Ruffells Ad Break. In this episode, brought to you by our season sponsors, Contented AI and Pegasus Bay Wine, I sit down with Kelly Morrison, storyteller, strategist and retail marketing leader, currently spearheading the launch of Sweaty Betty into New Zealand and Australia. From fruit and veggie shops to launching global brands, Kelly's journey is anything but typical. We talk about navigating fast fashion's ethical grey zones, why authenticity and agility matter more than ever in modern marketing, and how lived experience is the best teacher you can ever have.
Ruffells Ad Break.
Kelly Morrison, thank you very much for coming along today.
You're welcome.
I've had a bit of a stalk, as I do with everyone. We've had some chats previously, some business dealings in the past. If I was to search who you are, or if you had the opportunity to give us an elevator pitch on who you are, how do you position yourself? Who are you? Who are we talking to?
That's a tricky one to start with. I've got a bit of an eclectic past. So I think I'm a storyteller.
Yep.
I think if I was to put it down to one thing, I'm someone who likes to tell good stories that make other people feel good. And it's about kind of matching people's wants and needs with products and services that are out there.
Yep. Were you, before you were in products and services, were you a storyteller at home? How did that work? Did you grow up in an environment where that was part of your makeup? Or
I think it probably was. I don't know that I necessarily knew it at the time.
Yeah.
If you go back to when I was a kid, the first thing when I was at my grandparents' house, we had to write down, what do you want to do when you're older? And I said journalist.
Uh-huh. What sort of age are we talking?
Like 6 or 7.
Yeah, really.
But I would hate to be a journalist.
I was going to say that was when journalism was sort of a definable thing, right?
Well, I think as a 6-year-old, you look at a journalist and you see like the presenters on What Now? Like that, like my version of, I'm not going to go out to them in Iraq and sit in the corner and take, So I don't think I really knew what journalism was, but at my core, it was probably about telling those stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other siblings? Did you have?
Yeah. I've got an older sister.
Yeah. And so were you both telling stories at Grandma's house?
No. She is quiet, but exceptionally talented creatively. Like she's doing, floral work and pottery and all that sort of stuff, jewelry making, all those sort of things. So she's really creative, but quite quiet.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about mum and dad?
Background.
Creative backgrounds or?
No, both kind of accounting and management stuff. Yeah.
And so what was that then? Did you sort of have a need that wasn't being met because it was all around facts and figures and you wanted some of the soft stuff, or did you just want to get into the detail?
I think I just liked telling funny stories and like being centre of attention. That's what my sister would say. She's like, you just always wanted to be centre of attention. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's where it comes from.
Oh, that's awesome. What sort of a kid were you? Were you shy? I mean, you've got a sister who's how old?
There's
how
about
different?
15 or 16 months
15,
between
16
us.
months.
We're really close.
Yeah. But with that closeness can sometimes be quite a lot of competition.
Yeah.
Did that exist? Did you compete with other kids in the neighbourhood and things like that? Did you always want to achieve?
Definitely been competition. My sister would always say that when she went to school, she was known as Kelly's sister.
Oh.
And she hated that.
I bet.
And then we'd get home from school and she'd go to tell mum and dad something that had happened and they're like, oh, yeah, Kelly told us that. And she's like, oh, that was my story to tell. So I think I was always like kind of out there, but extroverted, but equally didn't have huge amounts of confidence. Like I think I masked that. I think I put it out there that I was confident, but I really wasn't. Yeah.
Have you apologised?
No. Maybe I should.
I don't know.
Sorry, Vicky.
Sorry, Vicky. On Kelly's behalf. Yeah, imagine that. Oh, God, that's terrible.
No, we're really close now and we get on really well and she helps me with a lot of the stuff that I do.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, did you ever have a period of time? My brother is, 18 months older, something like that. And it's interesting because when we were kids, I think we were kind of thick as thieves, but I was definitely his brother and I was always the end of the queue and I was always sent on errands to jump over the neighbour's fence, go and get some raro from Mrs. Chambers. Go and get some raro. And so I'd go and do that diligently and then be told, like, that's rude to go and ask your neighbour Ferraro. And then they would then give me a hard time for not getting it. So I totally get that. And we kind of fell out. But later on, actually once he left the city and then the country, we became good friends. So it's interesting how those sort of early competitive, but I guess the personas that develop early on can sort of forge some lifelong friendships. So
Yeah. I think for Vicky and I, it was we were better friends when we didn't live together.
Yep.
So as soon as we moved out of home,
Yep.
that became the part.
Yep.
And we're so different but complementary.
Yep.
We work quite well together. So that's sort of how that's evolved.
Speaking of work, have you? I know that professionally, your background's been quite diverse. Did you work as a kid? Did you have jobs? What was expected?
Yeah, so one of the places that Mum did the accounts for was a fruit and vegetable shop back when they used to have their own kind of orchards and things.
Yep.
And so that was my first role, was she got me into the shop there and I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, I was working there as a kid.
Handling cash or stocking shelves?
Yeah, doing all of that. And I learned a lot because the guy who was in charge was pretty strict. So I learned a lot pretty quickly there. And then just, your standard kind of worked at the movies and those sort of things, worked at the body shop through school.
Well,
all kind of retail.
It's interesting because you say your standard jobs, like that's normal, was for me. But there are a lot of people who don't work these days until they're older, like, late teens, maybe into their early 20s. And I think part of that is because, I've got a 13-year-old and she's desperate to do something.
Yeah.
And nobody will hire her because she's not 15 or older.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult unless there's an opportunity there,
Through a family friend or something.
Or something. It's really difficult. So
it is, yeah.
the world that we grew up in, and I'm guessing at your age, and I won't mention that here, but I'm assuming it's not too dissimilar. And, it was just easier to have some of those life experiences. I think potentially that's been a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I've got my 16-year-old, she works at the movies, very proud. She's taken the mantle from my movie part-time role. And my 14-year-old, she's just turned 15, she hasn't got anything yet because, like you say, that no one's even going to really look at her. And unless you knew someone, you could sort of backdoor them. But, yeah.
Did you have a worst job ever? I mean, it can be any of them. It could be...
I mean, they all taught me something. So, like... The ones that you hate.
You're just being very philosophical
I
now.
am, but the ones that you hate are the ones you learn the most from. So, like, I hated the fruit and veg shop because I had to get there super early on a Saturday. And when I say super early, I was a teenager. So, 9 o'clock was early. And it was freezing because all the vegetables came out of the cooler and you had to carry big 20-kilo bags of carrots. I hated that, but it did kind of set me up for what was expected. And then, as you get older, you have good and bad experiences in employment.
Yep. Absolutely. So where did that sort of early stage retail, I suppose, or service industry work? Where did that start? You did the storytelling stuff early, but you probably didn't think that was anything other than potentially playing or practicing some life skills or what have you. Where did you start seeing an opportunity to sort of move towards the marketing function or business, or was that early days that you decided you didn't want to be the one who was stacking cold fruit and veg?
Yeah. Well, so I was lucky enough when I was 17 to do a student exchange, and so my final year of high school was done in Amsterdam.
Yep.
So that's a bit of an eye-opener for someone from Christchurch to just land in Amsterdam. And so I got back from there and I just decided the world's too big. I can't stay in Christchurch. So I studied travel and tourism and I was like, right, I'm going to, be a flight attendant or get on a cruise ship or something. And travel was my world and I was going to work to pay for travel. And the first job I got was actually at the school where I studied and they took me on as receptionist there. And as I was working on reception, I was thinking, they could advertise this better. They could tell people more about what was happening at the school. And I sort of naturally progressed into a marketing role. There was no marketing role, but I kind of created my own because I guess it's that whole storytelling thing. I wanted to tell people the experience I'd had. Yep. And I wanted to tell them, through the media of marketing. And also I fancied the radio guy who was selling us radio. I don't even remember who he was, but anyway.
We don't need
We can
his
skip
name,
over
but
that.
that's great.
You can
Thank
maybe
you for
cut that.
thanks for the honesty. We'll keep that one in. So we'll get back to that. But when you said, so you're 17 years old, something like that, you're having to apply to go on an overseas experience for a year. Mm-hmm. You're either confident or you don't know what the hell's going on, maybe both.
Yeah.
How do you find yourself in that situation, and how do you have the confidence to do it? And were you always so fiercely independent?
There's lots of questions in that. Someone came and talked about exchanges at school, and I was like, that'll be cool. I don't have to do my exams.
Okay.
So I went home.
This is good.
And we're having dinner, and I said to Mum and Dad, I think I'm going to do a student exchange. And they went, okay, yeah, whatever, because I was full of these big ideas, right?
Yeah.
And they never really thought I'd follow through. And so then I actually put in the application, because I think when someone says they don't believe that you're going to achieve, that's like fire in my belly, right? So I went ahead and applied, and I wanted to go to France or Spain, because I thought they sounded like cool cities. And then they came back and they said, yep, you've been accepted and you're going to Holland. And I was like, I don't even know where that is. So I had to look it up on a map, and I found it. And then I knew 2 words when I got on the plane to go. They were please and carrots. And that was it.
That's great.
And I landed, and I think when I landed into Schiphol Airport, I think that's when it kind of hit me that I was like,
shit.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was one of the bad words.
You can say that word.
Yeah, so I kind of learnt some bad words at that point, because I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And it was really, really hard. But I think I just kind of had to, because I'd told everyone I would, and I'm not going to back down on that.
But do you have a family you're staying with?
Yeah, so I was staying with a mum and dad, I suppose, and he was an alcoholic, so he ended up getting committed into a rehab centre while I was there.
Oh.
Which was awesome.
That's good vetting.
Yeah, right. I don't know quite how they ended up with student, but I didn't really rely on them too much. I kind of made friends at school, and really threw myself into it, and had to learn the language. Like that was it. Like I either learned the language so I could make friends, or I was isolated.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that was challenging, really challenging. And at the end of it, I got this book. Everyone made this book, and they wrote me little sentences. And the chemistry teacher, she would translate all my exams into English for me. And she said that she'll never forget me, because now she knows the English word for polyunsaturated fats. That's how I remember. and one guy, we became quite good friends. Not that good, but good friends. And he only knew two sentences in English. He knew, can I have a glass of water? And a shark has bitten my leg off. Like, where do these people
really
get this
stuff? Yeah.
So, yeah, it was really fun. But I think it was trying to prove a point, like that becomes a bit of a thing for me, is I've said I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do it.
I mean, it's kind of mad. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's mad.
I get it. Throw yourself in the deep end.
Yeah.
Because then there's only one option.
Yeah.
Is to swim, right?
Yeah.
There's only one option.
Yeah.
But that's quite mad that you did that so young, and that you did it confidently and without knowing Dutch.
Yeah.
I mean, I
took lessons and everything, but clearly I didn't learn because 2 words.
Yeah, wow. What do you learn from that at 17, 18? What do you learn?
Resilience is a big one. You learn to be comfortable with yourself, because you spend a lot of time on your own. And I think it particularly, and I see it in my girls now who are 15 and 16, your social circle becomes your safety net, and you rely so heavily on friendships and relationships. But when you are taken away from all of that and you've got to stand on your own 2 feet, you really learn to be comfortable in your own space.
Yep.
So I think those are 2 big things that I learnt. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I learnt to not eat the Dutch licorice, because it's disgusting.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I learnt that real quick.
I did an exchange in 7th form as well.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Scotland.
Nice.
So at least it was the same language.
Oh, sort of.
more or less. But yeah, that's interesting because you form over this last summer. It's like a bad joke. There was a Swiss, a German, American, and me.
Nice.
And we're firm friends, you know, however many decades later. And my Swiss friend just brought his family out for 3 months last summer. You know, so we're still, you know, besties. Don't talk to each other very often, but when we do, it's like nothing ever changed. But because I think that foundational stuff was so strong, you know.
I think you lean on them like they're your family because you have no one else. Yeah.
And accept that they're not, so you've got to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing as far as being social creatures who need to sort of build bonds and ties with other people. I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it helps us out. I don't know. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Did you do any work over there? Did you do a part-time job or something?
No, I wasn't allowed to do any of that. I was just only there on a student visa. So I was at school and I failed my English exam. That's so fun.
It's classic. Wow.
And the reason, it's valid, right?
Is it?
So, because at the level that I was studying, they were translating from English into Dutch. So when you go from your native language to a foreign language, as long as you've got a couple of words that you know, you can put together a sentence that makes sense grammatically.
Yep.
But for me, translating from English to Dutch is really hard because I could put together the words, but I couldn't put the sentence structure together.
Okay.
And so everything I wrote was just gibberish.
Okay.
So that's why I failed it. I'm going to justify myself on that.
Plus, you left New Zealand to not have to do exams.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe there's also...
Yeah. I didn't realise that the Europeans are just all about exams.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, so then you said, and just to clarify this for me, you got a job with the agency who sent you over?
No. So I came home and studied travel and tourism.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it was one of the private institutions. And at the end of that, I got a job actually in their Wellington office.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you fell into marketing
there.
It
just kind of evolved.
In what way? Do you remember the first piece of marketing collateral you produced for them? A brochure or what was it?
I sent out a letter. So this is back pre kind of mass email stuff. So we were printing letters and prospectuses and things, and we had a database of about 20,000 people. So we sent these things out, and I got tonsillitis in the middle of sending it out, but I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to finish it. I was so unwell. So unwell. So I sent out this letter to 20,000 people, and it had about 5 or 6 spelling mistakes in it. And so this person sends it back to the director of the college, red penning all of it, saying, if this is how you teach, I'm not sending my kids there. So it was a bit of a fail. But they kept me on. I don't know why.
Well, because you were enthusiastic and because
Possibly.
you travelled and had some real life experience, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And I had ideas. I was very much an ideas person, and that's probably true today, is that I come up with these ideas, but I do need people underneath me who are just holding on to my ankles going, hang on, you need to come back down to earth a little bit, and proofreading.
Yeah. Let's make this work. Yeah. Grammarly.
AI.
Use the tools.
Yeah,
Use
exactly.
the tools. What do you think about the tools? Are they these days? I mean, would that have helped, do you think? I mean, sometimes the more creative you are, and I'm not saying you, but just generally, the more creative people are, sometimes the more they struggle with some of those traditional sort of structures, whether it's maths or grammar or spelling, or whatever. Those tools can kind of democratize some of that potentially. I don't know. Do you have a take on that?
I mean, I think the tools are great. I don't want to use them. I want someone else to do that. I'm just like, let me kind of be the strategist and the ideas person and pull together these cool things and kind of make sure they get executed, but can someone be there just making sure all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed?
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And if they use tools to do that, great, go for it. But
you don't care.
It's not really my thing.
Yeah. It's actually a really great ad, which we just saw today from Fiverr, which is about using AI. And the whole tagline is nobody cares.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Nobody cares.
It's a tool. Use it.
Use it.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you've had this disastrous newsletter with which has been sent back by one person.
Maybe.
Okay. Red penned. then where to from there? I mean,
well, I think I kind of looked at it and went, this is ridiculous. I took over one of the classrooms to line up everything that needed to be sent, and we had, letters with their address that we had to match up with the labels. And I was like, why are we doing this? There's a huge amount of cost in the printing and the labour of doing it, and then, you get a spelling mistake. It didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how can we still reach those people but not do it in that way? And that's when I started going, there's, radio and there's magazines and there's all this stuff. So I started kind of looking into that, which I don't think was really on their radar because it was so early days. Like, we're talking quite a few years ago.
And do you think that's just because traditionally that was the best way to reach people, and so they hadn't challenged that? There's been nobody...
Yeah, I don't think anyone had the time. Like, they were teachers. Yeah. They wanted to teach content. So I don't think anyone had really kind of looked above the business and gone... just because we've always done it this way, is it the right way?
Yeah. There are better ways to market, more efficiencies to be made.
Yeah.
Broader reach.
And cuter retail, radio guys. Yeah.
Is this going to be a reoccurring theme?
No.
Just the one.
Very happily married.
Just the one radio guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Shaped my career.
Charming. They can offer perks. Would you like to go to Electric Ave? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would if I was a young lady. Yeah. God, I don't know. It feels like we've diverted somewhat, doesn't it?
Into the gutter.
So tell me then. But from that first job, which was receptionist, into marketer, or at least ideas person, at least your ideas were starting to be seen. Where did you go? Was that like, right, I'm going to build this up now and I'm going to become the internal, marketing resource? Or was it, I'm going to start looking, if I can find this here accidentally, that there have got to be other opportunities for me?
No, I don't think I was as calculated as that. I did kind of build the role into a marketing role that they'd never had in the company before. So I did that, but I think I kind of grew out of it. It became more about recruitment of students, and that really didn't spin my wheels as much. And I still had this underlying desire to travel. And so I was probably about 21 or something, and I was like, right, OE time. And that was when I took off to London.
Yep.
Yeah. And then overseas, I took a job at a kids camp, like a Butlins-y type thing.
Yeah.
Because that was just easy, like accommodation was paid for, you were safe, your foods was there.
Food, accommodation, all you have to do is look after ungrateful teenagers.
Yeah, like Eton College.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was interesting. Anyway, so I did that for about 6 months. But interestingly, again, I went over there as an activities person, and within about 6 weeks of being there, a role came up in the office. And I was like, I think I could do that. And so I went into the office and started doing like rosters and putting together the packages for the schools and things like that. So I guess that I just naturally kind of went to where my skills were.
You love a system.
Yeah, I guess I do, but I don't love going for beach walks with 12-year-olds.
Yeah, but you're an accountant at heart. That's mum and dad, isn't it? Maybe we're finding mum and dad in this story somewhere. They're funny.
Maybe.
And then you get to tell the story on top of that.
Yeah,
so,
maybe. But I just felt far more comfortable in there than I did, out teaching people to abseil, because I felt like a bit of a fraud. I hate the outdoors.
Interesting. Fraud in the outdoors, but you'll give it a go if you've got a good idea elsewhere. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, and so then from there I went and did a nanny stint for a year, which again was board food.
Yep.
So it's all about safety at that point for me.
And gaining experience, just life experiences. And yeah. And that was the driver. What were you trying to spend a certain period of time away? Or
I had the 2-year visa thing. Yep. And then while I was a nanny, I met a guy. And
radio?
No, he doesn't work in radio. And at that point it was like, okay, I'm probably going to stay in England for a while, so I need to do something a wee bit more long term. Yeah, and that's when I went and studied marketing professionally. Yep,
great. Okay. And how does that play out? Because this was not your last stint at education. So how much between how much study are you doing? Work are you doing? Are you doing family? Are you doing what? How does that?
Once I decided that England was going to be my home for a while, I studied a marketing qualification over there, and then got a job in proper marketing. And then
What's proper marketing?
Well, I was marketing manager for a finance company.
Yep.
That's the accounting thing again, yeah, right? Which was brilliant, yeah. And then we got married, and we decided to have children, and we wanted to have children back here. So we came back here and had the family. And then I did lots of different things, all kind of marketing based in some way or other. And then I kind of got to a point where I'd sort of gone as far as I could go with this qualifications and experience that I had, and I wanted a more rounded view of business. So I didn't want to go into a business and be always looking at the marketing side of things. The storytelling is really important, the relationship building is really important, but often there are other factors that influence business decisions.
Definitely.
And I didn't have a great view of that. And I knew that if I wanted to take a step up and be able to sit around a boardroom and give advice, I needed to have a better understanding of kind of the economics and other stuff. And that's when I decided to do the MBA at UC.
Yep.
Because when I looked into it, that was going to give me the best kind of, I guess, high-level viewpoint of business without getting too detailed in anything. I didn't want to do an accounting degree or a law degree or anything like that. I didn't want to specialise. I wanted to be across, strategic decisions for businesses.
Yep. And you've bought and sold a business before then as well?
Yeah.
Which was a little bit eye-opening as well, in some ways.
Yeah. So
owning a business is difficult regardless of what it is.
Owning a business is, I think everyone should do it once.
Yep.
Because I think it turns you into a very different person.
Sometimes not good.
Sometimes not so nice.
Sometimes okay.
But certainly more empathetic.
Yep.
So I bought a model agency, which... And when you first kind of talk about it, you go, well, that's completely left field, right? But essentially what I was doing was selling assets to companies to use, and those assets happen to be people. And I was trying to kind of bring the right person into the campaign so that, there was an overall kind of theme there. And that was really interesting experience. I did that for about 7 years. And then decided, and that worked really well. Well, I had young children because I was working from home and I was flexible with time and able to sort of be around. But then it kind of got to a point where it wasn't quite enough, and I needed to go out and get a job and be around people a bit more too. I felt quite lonely.
Which is interesting when your business revolves around people.
Yeah, but they are...
Assets.
They're real people. They are real people, and I loved all of my models. They were like my children, but they weren't colleagues.
Yeah.
They were people who we had a business relationship or a business contract with, and so you didn't have that colleague, that kind of water cooler chat.
Yep.
And there was that professional kind of limitation on how you could.
That must be difficult. I think that must be such a difficult job, because even working with talent, and we hired talent from you.
Yes.
I'm so confused. I don't know if I should say assets or
talent. Let's call them talent, because that's what they are. They were very talented.
Yeah. And even that relationship it's strange. It's such a strange thing that we do in sort of in advertising, where you'll be making a TV campaign and you have people who are on the clock who need to perform at the time, and it's a very weird thing. The longer I actually think the shorter the period of time that you work with humans as commodities, the easier it is, because you don't think too deeply on it. The longer you do it, it becomes quite a different thing. And I don't really know what I'm saying here.
No, I think I can sort of relate in that. Part of the reason I had to exit was because it got to a point where I felt really uncomfortable. And some of these girls would come to me quite young, or guys, 13, 14-year-old, and they're beautiful and they should be modelling and they should be using their beauty to get them some extra money if they want to. That's absolutely fine. Builds their confidence, gives them all sorts of great skills, life skills. But having to tell them they hadn't been selected, or often, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but clients change their mind.
No. Really?
So you'll have them booked and they will have taken time off work or out of school or whatever, and then the day before the client rings up and says, actually, we don't need them anymore, we've got a friend to do it, or we actually would rather a brunette over a blonde. And telling these impressionable young people, I'm sorry, it's fallen through, actually was, it was devastating, and I didn't like that bit at all.
Fair enough.
So
I had to fire a 4-year-old off our set once. That's not good.
No.
That's not good. I mean, they had to go.
Yeah.
they had to, but it's not a conversation you want to have with their parents.
No. Well, I had some twins lined up for a movie, and the director for that was a big movie, one of the really big ones that was filmed here. I can't even remember what it was, but they wanted a very young baby, so they needed twins. And I had these twins, and the mum had taken time out of work, and they were on hold. And it wasn't until the day before that we were told they're not needed. And she'd kind of put plans in place, these are under one, these twins. So I just really disliked that. And Christchurch is very small, and trying to find jobs worthy of these kids or kids, adults, young adults, it was tough. It was really, really tough.
Yep.
And I just sort of got myself into a bit of a funk, I guess, about not being able to do what I felt like they deserved.
But what did you learn? That must, again, so you've got these wonderful, talented people that you're working with, and you're trying to match them with hopefully meaningful projects that, what do you learn from a business perspective? How do you manage those people, and clients, and your bottom line, and a young family? How do you do all of that? What do you learn?
Well, I think you learn quite quickly you have to sometimes take the emotion out of business decisions, and that's really hard. I don't know if it's harder for a female, particularly one who's got young children herself. I struggled with that because I could relate, if I was hearing this as a mum or if my kids were hearing this. But taking the emotion out of your business decision and doing what's right for the business, and that's really hard when you're dealing with people. It's much easier if you've got, 6 pairs of trousers and you have to choose 3 for your line. Your trousers don't really care if you say no to them. So dealing with those human emotions is really, really tricky. And I think that probably makes you a better leader when you go into a business environment and you're kind of like, right, I've got a team of people who I need to do stuff. How am I going to make them do what I want them to do without telling them and being really horrible about it? So just, I guess, trying to understand people's diverse reactions and...
And then that leads you to an MBA, because why not, right?
Well, from there I went and worked at the Crossing in town, and so I was centre manager there. And again, that was great. Loved that job. Learnt probably the most I've ever learnt from the Carters there. But again, you're dealing with a lot of people, and because I was the manager of the complex, but each individual business is individually owned, and they could be owned by, you've got H&M, which is a huge multi-million-dollar global thing, right down to your kind of one-man band who's the guy's there every day working in his own shop. They all want the same thing. They want to sell products, but they have very different ways about going about it. And so you have to kind of work to what is going to work for them.
And centre manager, from all the people that I've spoken to who have done it, it's incredibly difficult. It's a game of politics. It's a game of there are some commercial realities. There's revenue involved. Yes, you need those individuals to do their own marketing, but you also need to make sure that there's visibility across the centre, so that they want to be there in the first place.
Exactly.
And that was probably at a time when the city was still very much recovering, rather than even the last probably year or so, all that upper high street has now been reconstructed, and there are rooftop bars and there are very bougie, cafes and all the rest of it, which is drawing people back.
So when I went into the crossing, we're probably only about 40% tenanted, I suppose. There was a lot of empty space in there.
Yep.
It had been open for a year and a half, so they'd done amazing to get to where they'd got to, and it needed to be taken to that next level. We got really close in 2019, and I remember standing up on the terrace looking out over the centre, and it was busy and it was Christmas and everything was great, and I was like, I think we've cracked it. And then by March I was locking the gates and sending everyone home.
Yep.
So it's just not.
So you were getting close to capacity, and then
we still had a way to go in terms of capacity, but the city felt like it was feeling good. Like there was.
It did.
People were coming back, and it just felt like it was growing into something that we could be really, really proud of.
Yeah.
And
that little
curveball.
That little thing called COVID.
The C word.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
The C word. So what is it then that you want to get out now that you've and look, I mean, there's a whole heap of stuff, and you're back into retail again, so it's almost like you've done a full circle in many ways. But what is it you want to get out of the work that you do? Because you've got a massive amount of life experience, and one of the things that I think is the most difficult, maybe it's not the most difficult, but it's one of the things which is really a big challenge for anybody who has lived and worked outside of the country and some big centres where, I mean, for a couple of years I was making TV series in the UK, but half of them would be filmed in the UK and half of them would be filmed in Europe. Some of my colleagues were sent to the States, it wasn't a big deal, to just pop over to Sweden for a week and to film a show, right? Whereas here, if you're in Auckland, it's almost impossible to come to Christchurch, How do you? So if you have that big world experience and that big thinking, plus you have business ownership, you've worked for big, corporates, families who are big enough to be corporates, but still high expectation. You've worked in retail, put systems in place, processes. How do you find something that you want to do?
Well, I think. Where I've landed now is launching a new brand into New Zealand and Australia. And I think what I need out of my role is that it has to be more than just a transactional thing. There has to be purpose behind it. So there has to be a reason that we're actually making the world a better place for the next generation. So I work in retail, and the new brand that we're bringing in, Sweaty Betty, it's coming in from London, and it's a great brand, and it's leggings and sports bras. And they say on their branding, leggings and sports bras aren't going to change the world, but the women who wear them will. And so what we want to do is kind of create a brand that isn't just about a transactional thing. Here's your money, here's your product. We want to create a community of people who really enjoy that and empower people to be better versions of themselves, or the best version of themselves, and to help other people be better versions of themselves too. They say that, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I think it's kind of, for me, it's about telling those stories but making them meaningful. I don't think I could work in an environment that is just purely profit-driven. Don't get me wrong, you need to make profit. That's what the world's all about, right? But there has to be more to it than that. You have to get satisfaction from somewhere else or you'll never be happy.
And is that for you, or is that's the organisation? That has to be sort of from the top down within an organisation?
I think it has to be from the top down. If the person at the top is just about making money, then that's the culture that filters through, because they'll be pushing for more sales. You got to sell more shoes than you did last year. And to me, that's not a metric that we should be judging ourselves on. I don't think that is a sustainable metric, because there's only so many pairs of shoes you can sell. So there has to be more to it than that, and I think it has to come from the top. So the organisation that I've joined, they've picked up this brand because of its ethos, because of its motivation behind the brand. And I'm on board with that.
Awesome. What does it look like? What does it look like for New Zealand? What does it look like for Australia? Two very different markets. I think anybody who says that, oh, yeah, we're like cousins, well, maybe very distantly, but I think it's, there's a lot of cultural differences.
Yeah. Yeah, there's cultural differences, there's buying behaviour differences, there's the way that you live differences, which all come down to your wants and needs and what you're prepared to prioritise over other things. So absolutely, they're completely different strategies. And I think if you just lift and shift, you're going to fail. So we need to look at microclimates. I mean, even if you look at, we're launching into Christchurch, but we're going to open in Auckland, they're different markets. And if we try and say the same thing to those people, we're going to get very different results.
Yep.
So we need to be very aware of consumer behaviours and desire and considerations.
Yep. And then how do you manage that then when you go, so as you say, Christchurch to Auckland, substantial differences. To Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, very different again. I mean,
Incredibly.
it's like, so if you're working for an organisation which is more purpose-driven and really understands that, then, I mean, what is that, a decade's work to get into all those markets? I mean, how long
Let's
does
hope so.
How long does it take? What do you think? I mean,
it is. It's a long time to establish a brand, but I think if your brand pillars are strong, so what you stand on, if they're strong, then it's just about your accent. So it's about how you then listen to what the locals are saying and get involved in local activities and local charities, and but standing on those same pillars. We want to empower women. That's not going to change whether you're in Christchurch, Auckland or Sydney. It's just how you empower them and what you empower them with that probably is going to change.
Yep.
So and that's the great thing about this global brand. It's set up in the UK. It's doing exceptionally well in the UK. We know those brand pillars are strong. So we take those and we localise them.
Is it another Dove? Do you remember all the Dove campaigns over the last sort of 10 years, which are real women? And
maybe, but
I don't know.
But it's I don't want to diss Dove. I absolutely love what they've done.
Yeah.
I think what they've done is really important, but I feel like what we're doing is a little bit more authentic because I feel like they've pivoted to use that because they've kind of had to, because they've had some bad, they've had some bad press about what's in the products and things like that. So they've kind of had to, whereas ours started like that.
That's interesting. So they've taken the learnings from those categories. So fast fashion, there are certain players in that space who are really expensive for a pair of leggings, look really great if you're into that. But when you look a little bit more closely as to where and how they were made, and the price tag doesn't quite stack up. How do you overcome that? When that's already the reputation of market for fast fashion not being particularly friendly.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that, do you reckon?
I don't know that one brand is going to overcome fast fashion. Yep. I think there is an element to that. What we want to do is say that we are sustainable in every way that we can be. So the fabrics, the way that they're made in good quality. The factories that we use are audited, those sort of things. So we can control what we can control. I wouldn't put us in fast fashion because I'm not going to suggest that you would buy a pair of leggings and then throw them out or get another pair the next season. You might have 5 in your closet, but you should be able to wear them for a long period of time. Fast fashion to me is something that you buy, you wear 3 or 4 times and then you chuck it or whatever. So we're certainly not, I wouldn't put us in the fast fashion category. But yeah, I mean, there is an element of fashion that's not as pretty as
it's
it could
tricky.
be.
It's tricky. Yeah, we did an awareness campaign with furniture, and we went through where it was designed in Scandinavia, then to the factories it's manufactured in Vietnam, and then how it's used at home in New Zealand. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, some of those factories in Vietnam, the working conditions are better than the working conditions here. And, it's more just about being honest about where things come from, being as transparent as you can be, and letting people call bullshit and you have an answer for it. You know, if you brush it off and you go, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that, that's when people get suspicious, right?
Yeah.
But if you're prepared to confront that with, hey, look, this is what we're doing in that place. Yeah, it might not be perfect, or actually it is pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
And I think, you know, like electricity was built by candlelight, right? So we can't just chuck out one thing to fix another. We've got to, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done for sure. And like you say, some of those factories in China and Vietnam and Turkey and that, they are really good, but there's some that are really, really bad. And unfortunately, that's what people think about.
Yep.
So we just have to be mindful of that. The global team are very mindful of that. They have got a whole sustainability piece and they're constantly trying to look for better ways to do things.
Yep.
And we just, you know, follow their lead on that one.
Awesome. So very broadly speaking, you know, from when you took that first job as a receptionist and decided to put some systems in place because of that radio guy, right the way through to where you are today, I mean, what's changed and what's the same? You know, how are humans still humans? Is that sort of the bottom line? Is it just the channels to market? Is it just the tools that we're using to communicate in different ways? Is it that our consideration sets have broadened, or that we're more niche specific?
I think all of that. There's like, I don't think you'd be able to have time to talk about all the things that have changed because life has just changed dramatically. The biggest change that I've seen is your access to information and then the ability for disinformation to take hold. So you've got to be authentic because people will, like you say, call you out on bullshit, but also people can instantly damage your reputation, like instantly, because social media has kind of taken over and everyone's got access to everything immediately. You pull out your phone, you know exactly what you're looking for. So whereas before there was a lot more time and effort and research required, now people know a lot more, or they think they do. And that's the hardest thing to kind of combat from a marketing point of view is keeping the truth and being reactive or proactive and reactive to your customers in a much more timely fashion.
And in an authentic way with the values at heart. Yeah.
While making money.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's a really delicate balance.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you say you're making money, people think you're the devil.
Yeah. But if you don't make profit, then you don't have a business. And therefore,
there.
everybody who is employed loses their job.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, what about timing? You know, you did mention before the C word. Now that's... here we've had in Christchurch, obviously it's been a bit longer than that. It's sort of a decade of rebuilding, followed by COVID, followed by a recession. Is there anything that you can do from a marketing perspective to combat those external factors, or do you just have to roll with them?
You have to roll with them, but I think you have to acknowledge them. Like the biggest thing is kind of being honest about how those things have affected you if your stock's late or which is a big one. You know, you put out a marketing campaign and your stock's not there. So you kind of just have to acknowledge that things aren't always going to be linear and be prepared to change it up and kind of, I don't know, the best marketing campaigns that I've seen are the ones where they take the piss out of themselves a little bit, you know, like if you make a mistake, own it.
Own it, yeah. Turn it into a PR opportunity.
Turn it into a PR opportunity and don't kind of brush it under the carpet and pretend no one will see it because they will. Yep. And this is the whole, you know, age of social media. It can really backfire.
Do you think some of those bigger, more established brands who are traditionally a bit more conservative, usually a bit more cash rich, do you think that they're in need of being a bit more agile in that regard, you know?
I do, but I also think they're scared.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the legal teams are probably holding them back.
Yeah.
You know, you look at some of the stuff that Hal's doing and their legal team must be the best paid team in the world. But they're not scared to kind of push the boundaries and that's what's kind of fun.
But it's also on brand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's their whole shtick.
It is.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, if you had a crystal ball, Kelly, what do 3 to 5 years look like? What does that look like?
I actually don't know. For the first time probably in my whole career, I really honestly don't know. What I'm doing at the moment is a contract placement. So whether I continue next year or not, I don't know. The world is changing at such an enormous rate that who knows what the next opportunity there is. I think you just have to be prepared to walk through open doors and see what's on the other side. I hope that I am happy in my role and that I've landed with something that fills that kind of satisfaction of knowing that we're purpose-driven rather than profit-driven. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Ad Break, team. For more on how we work and how we can help your business do better, get in touch at ruffles.co.nz, and we'll see you on the next one.